Halo Combat Evolved, a revolution for the first-person shooter genre. Halo 2, a sequel that, while didn't quite end up how it was supposed to, brought forward an impressive story and changed online multiplayer in FPS shooters forever. Halo 3, the final evolution of its predecessors, wrapped up in a bombastic finale, whether it be story, multiplayer, and fortified the already strongly supported community. These games dominated a portion of my life for years, and have left a large mark not only upon myself, but the game industry and hundreds of thousands of others. What made these three games in particular stand out to me? Why is it that these games and their incredible worlds left such an impact, both in narrative and mechanically? I'm here to tell you, with my ending thoughts on the original Halo trilogy. Combat Evolved was released November 15th, 2001, and was extremely well received, far better than Bungie and Microsoft had expected, but it's no wonder that the game was considered a revolution at the time. Bungie had absolutely nailed the functionality of CE's controls, so well in fact that many still consider it to be the best gameplay in the series, myself included. Its greatest strength in my opinion was how simple it was. Many people know the so-called Halo triangle: guns, grenades, and melee. Bungie saw this as bulletproof mechanics that would work, and it shows. Everything else, from moving to the balanced weapon design and the well-paced placement of enemies, set this game on center stage with a giant spotlight over it. At the time, many thought the idea of two sticks controlling a character in a first-person shooter was crazy, but Bungie openly defied this idea and proved it with this game. They had successfully managed to find a near-perfect balance by seamlessly creating a flowing mechanical relationship between the player and the Master Chief. The game centers around you and Chief weaving a beautifully constructed dance of death and mayhem amongst a variety of challenging foes. Halo 1's combat is fair, with barely any unfair deaths. Well, barely. It was a solid system of gunplay, and the enemies knew how to give you a fight of their own, with only one enemy type ever focusing on swarm-like fighting. While Combat Evolved does reuse many of the same levels, the experience within them are completely different, allowing for continuously changing strategy and gameplay. As I've stated already, Combat Evolved is the best in terms of game functionality, only closely rivaled by Halo 3. It will forever remain a masterpiece in the FPS genre, and we owe much of today's first-person shooter experiences to Combat Evolved. All of these praises, however, can't quite be said for its following compatriot. However, Halo 2 did build upon CE's formula in an ultimately positive way. Like Halo 1, Halo 2 was a major game changer in the FPS genre. In fact, I'd argue it's probably one of the most influential games in the series. The amount of competitive groups and multiplayer stories that spawn from this game alone are too long for any one list. Halo 2 took the great gameplay of its predecessor and ramped them from 100 to 150. The faster gunplay, the refined control over your Spartan's movements rose the well-established reputation of Halo and then skyrocketed them. The multiplayer was definitely the major shining light that couldn't seem to be matched at the time. And by also featuring 4-player split-screen like Halo 1, and tossing in dual-wielding, Halo 2 became an instant couch game for people and their friends to sit around late at night, BS, and have a good time. The campaign does take the passenger seat here, but we'll get to the story soon. Halo 2 at the time seemed unstoppable, but little did we know that the final installment of this series would be the absolute pinnacle of it. When I play Halo 3, one thing is absolutely certain to me. This was the game where Bungie took all that they learned in terms of mechanics and storytelling of the previous games, threw them into a blender, and created a drink so satisfying it grossed $300 million in its first week. Halo 3 took the great gunplay of Halo 2 and somehow managed to improve upon it. Most dual-wielding weapons felt fairly balanced as well, and rarely did I ever feel like I had a cheap death, whether it was upon me or someone else. The balance in the campaign also felt much more of a blend of Halo 1 and 2. Semi-open worlds with a few other ways for you to handle your enemies was just the way this game needed to feel. It accomplishes blending Halo 1's openness while simultaneously keeping you on its linear story and progression. All in all, Halo 3 is a familiar feeling, with all the right ways to send off the trilogy. But that's mechanics. How is the story? At the time, Halo 1 held an ambitious goal with providing a deep narrative within a first-person shooter. While we may look at the story now as simple stepping stones that would lead to greatness, in 2001, Halo achieved a level of storytelling not quite as common in first-person shooters of the time, and people loved it. As far as characters go, they're as static as a block of cement. They don't undergo any huge arcs or evolve as characters over the course of the story. But they don't need to. Every character in Halo 1 is already established when we meet them. However, they're all acted so well that you, the player, feel like you're in the world with all of these characters, exploring the wonders and the horrors of the Halo ring, fighting against the Covenant aliens who wish to destroy you. Another thing is there never seems to be one particular enemy, but instead a bunch of enemies all wanting to end your existence. This would change in Halo 2. Again, all the characters, except the Arbiter and Shipmaster, are static. The theme of static characters lasts throughout the entirety of the Halo trilogy. But again, it works due to how the games present themselves and immerse you into their world. In Halo 2, the story shifts focus onto a few different things and establishes actual main enemies, who would become the prime antagonist of Halo 3. Cinematically, Halo 2 took leaps ahead and was one of the most movie-like first-person shooters I'd played at the time, and part of that also comes down to the trilogy's writing. The writing in the original Halo games is phenomenal. It's not often when I can quote every line in something I watch. Halo 2 cemented its narrative into my brain, and is personally my favorite game when it comes to its story. I was sad to see it come to an end. That is, until I bought Halo 3. Like I had said earlier, Halo 3 felt like a combination of Halo 1 and 2 in terms of mechanics and storytelling, and I'll always hold this statement as true. The overly bombastic nature of Halo's conclusion was enough to leave a lasting impression on me. Whether it's great writing, returning, great characters, telling its story with you in control of all of it, Halo 3's conclusion is by far one of the best endings to a game series I've ever played. But we are only talking about two parts of this triangular spectacle, and it would be a disservice if I didn't mention Marty O'Donnell's work on the game's soundtrack. To call Marty's work in this trilogy anything other than masterful would be insulting. The many different tracks he uses to convey emotion during parts of the narrative do stand out, giving each track a fairly memorable moment to define it, whether it's mowing down enemies on board a Covenant cruiser, horror and dread, a time of reflection and forgiveness.
I remember how this war started, what your kind did to mine. I can't forgive you, but you have my thanks for standing by him to the end. Hard to believe he's dead.
Were it so easy.
Or simply riding out in a blaze of glory while escaping an impending doom. The Halo soundtracks are beloved by many, and they deserve as much praise as they can get. The Halo series, while still fun, would be nothing without its amazing scores. Halo was more than just a video game. It sparked many friendships, a loving community with a loving developer at its head. The Halo series was my first intro into the FPS genre, so I may be coming off as biased with this video. But I think many can agree that this series wasn't just for us players who love to shoot things and look badass. It's a story with a lot of passion, with mechanics that help shape the stepping stones for today's FPS, and whether or not the series continues in ways we like, or ways we don't, we still have all the memories this wonderful trilogy brought to us and helped us forge. I would recommend this trilogy to anyone who enjoys first-person shooters or is just starting. They are a true, masterfully made work of art. And those are my ending thoughts on the original Halo trilogy.